have back with us MG Siegler of Crunch Fund and also Alan Blue, who is a co-founder, one of the co-founders of LinkedIn and Vice President of Product Management. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Welcome.
All right. So, where to begin? You've had a good year, an interesting year, maybe a long year, short year.
It's been a great year.
Yeah.
It's also been. It feels shorter than the years we've had in the past. We had years there where you were trying to make it work.
Right.
And now every year goes a little faster, get a little bit more done. It's exciting.
So, we're about 6 months removed from your IPO, LinkedIn's IPO, and obviously that was a huge rush. How was it actually like being in the company when that happened? You've been with the company for a long time, and kind of all leading up to this crescendo moment of that happening. What was it like? Was the company really exhilarated?
Excuse me. So, yes, absolutely. The company was thrilled. It was exciting. We have so many new people at LinkedIn, so many folks who've joined us in the last 6, 9, 12, 18 months. It was exciting to see how thrilled they were to be a part of it.
Yeah.
But the IPO wasn't a target for us. We hadn't been building up over the years to an IPO. In some ways, it was just another moment, an important component of LinkedIn's success, but it had never been a target for us. It's a means to an end.
And you also have the distinction now of being one of the first of these new waves of companies that are going through the IPO, and you hit the 6-month mark, and that's of course well known as the time when some employees like to cash out at that point and maybe exit. Have you seen a lot of that at LinkedIn? Has there been people mainly sticking around?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have seen very little of the kind of turnover you might expect.
Yeah.
I think it's always a hard balance for a company. You have to make sure that you're building an opportunity for each employee. So you want to make sure that not only do they have a great experience and not only do they have a chance to contribute to something great, but they also need to be able to participate in the success of the company. So we're very committed to our employees and to the success they have at LinkedIn and afterwards. But we kind of discovered that people still see so much opportunity working with the company. There's nothing like it, watching a company go from 3 years ago we were 180 people, and now we're 1,800.
Wow.
So watching that kind of growth, as you see people coming in, the opportunities just expand for everybody inside as we begin to diversify what we're working on. So I think our employees looked around and said, sure, I could go somewhere else. I have an opportunity to do that now, but the best opportunity is still right here.
That's great. Let's switch to something I know that you're excited about. We talked a bit about it, the mobile space. You guys are doing some definitely interesting things in the space. How do you view it overall, like the overall market? Like how is mobile changing the way that professionals work from LinkedIn's perspective, and how are you guys augmenting that? Is that what it is? Are you augmenting the way that people work?
Yeah. So when we think about LinkedIn and what we want to be able to help people do, we tend to think of sort of 3 big areas. So first one is we want to help people be better decision makers. Second thing is we want to help them be better innovators, to be more innovative when they work. And the third thing is we want to help them get things done. And so when we think about mobile, at least partially in those terms. So, it's interesting. In 2000, if everybody remembers, the BlackBerry was kind of the new thing, and every professional wanted to make sure they had one. It was sort of a status symbol. But it also turned out to be kind of a problem. We spent all of our time on our BlackBerry and didn't spend our time living our lives.
Right.
And I think that in the last 7 years, people have gotten good at balancing mobile's impact on their business and their impact on their life. So the good thing is the next generation of professional tools are things which I think professionals can really use to their advantage instead of, if you will, being used by those tools.
Right.
So we think of three things. One, we think about meeting intelligence. So for what we call the outbound professional, for the salesperson, the business development person, we think about them reaching out at a meeting. So I'm going and I'm going to go make a sales call on company X. Before I walk into that room, I now have access to all the data that I need about the people who I'm going to be meeting so I can make that meeting as successful as possible. We know a CEO at LinkedIn, not a salesperson, a CEO who is in the funding stage for their company. And she uses this meeting intelligence idea in kind of a unique way. I'm sure many of the people in the audience have had this experience, meeting an angel investor or meeting a VC like at a coffee shop or at a cafe. So what she'll do is she'll go there, she'll arrive 15 minutes early, and she'll take advantage of the photograph on LinkedIn so she can walk up to that VC and tap him on the shoulder and say, "Hey, MG, it's great to see you.
I know everything about you."
I know everything about you.
That's great.
Yes. So meeting intelligence. Second, trying to keep you informed about what's going on, making you good at what you do. So the news product that we have is an important thing for people to be picking up and consuming on their mobile device.
Right.
And the third thing is for events like this one, where people are meeting new people, and everybody here is meeting new folks today. It's a good way to establish and build that network, which is going to be an important part of all of your ventures being successful.
And let's talk a little bit about that, kind of pivoting from there to a product you launched recently, which is Card Munch, of course, which, it seems like all these events, we all go to a lot of them. We come home with a stack of business cards, and then you meet a lot of interesting people, and you want to follow up, but there's just this stack that you can't get rid of, and so you're trying to get rid of that.
LinkedIn would like to declare victory over the business card, and we will someday. In the meantime, though, it's an important event like this works, and an important component of many business cultures. So we tried to make the process a lot easier by providing the right kind of app for managing business cards. It's interesting, when we were talking about it earlier, business cards are kind of a transitional technology in a lot of ways. I mean, pretty much all technologies, I guess, are transitional. In this case, I mean that business cards were a great solution for a problem in 1875.
Right.
All that information printed on my business card. There are probably better solutions in the information age.
Yes.
Kind of like the blogosphere and online publishing replacing print journalism.
Media, yeah, for sure.
We're going to replace the business card. Maybe not quite as significant a change, but we like it anyway.
So let's move to social itself. Obviously, there's talk for many years about LinkedIn and Facebook. Could they coexist? Could they, was Facebook going to come into the business space too and kind of knock you guys out of there? Obviously, you've been very successful, and you were able to IPO before they did. Now we've got this other element of this whole game, which is players like Facebook again, but also Google coming in and making these more drilled down lists, Smart List and Google Plus Circles, where basically you have your broader network, but then you also have a smaller network, and maybe you can make like a circle or a list for your business contacts. Do you view LinkedIn's position still as important as a standalone network? So
Yes.
LinkedIn is not dying. You're not going to shut it down on stage today.
We did not come here to announce anything like that. The way we think about it is about context. So the business context is an important one. And if professionals are going to be interacting together, they need to have the right set of tools, the right set of information for doing work together. And the professional context allows us to really give those tools the space they need to be successful. If LinkedIn were trying to live within, say, Facebook, it would have to be cheek by jowl with Zynga games and Wooga games and many other applications which are strictly social. And we think and certainly this has been borne out as we talk to people, that having that space for the professional gives you the kind of control and access and the tools you want to do work together.
Did you guys ever think, like, thinking back to 2007, maybe 2008 or whatever, while Facebook was kind of, taking over as this huge network, did you guys think about going into the broader social space beyond just the business world?
So the short answer is no. We've never looked at it as a company. We have back in the day, we were probably making those choices to remain strictly professional based on what we think we would be able to do with our business. But later on, looking back on it, it turned out to be a great decision because having the professional space has actually been one of the few things which has made it possible for us to thrive in the context of something as powerful and awesome, frankly, as Facebook.
And, a huge part of Facebook is obviously identity, which is also a huge part of what you guys do. And this has come up again a bit recently because Google, with Google Plus, started out as they wanted to be strong on real name identity, and then they kind of went against it. How do you guys view that? Obviously, you are all about real names. There is no, silly girl 13 on LinkedIn or whatever. But how do you guys view the importance of identity within your user base?
So for us, it's always been job one. LinkedIn's mission in the world is to make professionals successful. And one of the things we want to do is we want to encourage people to do business well together. And part of doing business well means knowing who you're dealing with, knowing that person's reputation, knowing more about their past and their history. It's a part of the decision-making process in doing business. So, supporting a professional identity has always been key to the kind of value that LinkedIn can actually provide. There have been a few instances where we would have considered types of interaction which might have been anonymous, like, for instance, like LinkedIn Answers is a product we have, and we want to, that's a place where people could come and ask questions. Unfortunately, for a professional, asking a question is tantamount to admitting you don't know the answer, which is not always an easy thing for people to do.
Right.
So asking questions anonymously is something that we've actually considered. But on the other hand, we think the value of having everything associated with your own professional identity is actually high enough that we're considering other mechanisms by which we would allow you to successfully ask the questions you need to get answered.
Kind of making a more comfortable environment for that to happen.
Exactly right.
Within,
exactly right.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the developer community overall. Obviously, you guys have APIs and you work with other partners. Flipboard was here earlier. They're one of, they work with you guys for pulling in some information. How is that ecosystem? Do you view it as a strong one? Can it be better?
So it can absolutely be better. It can always be better. We put a lot of time and effort into making something which is easy to use and easy to understand by our developers, but it's always worth redoubling your efforts there, making those experiences of integrating with LinkedIn as straightforward as possible and as easy to understand and manage as you can. Part of what we're doing is creating a data resource and about about information about professionals and about their networks, which we would love to see integrated into applications of all kinds.
And let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn today, because it's one of the newer products, and it seems to be going really well. I mean, I know like at TechCrunch we would see huge amounts of traffic coming from that, and it's an interesting product for you guys because it doesn't, on the face of it, seem like a straight-up business tool. But when we were talking earlier, you had some good thoughts on why it is actually an ingenious business tool.
So as I mentioned earlier, a key part about LinkedIn is making decisions, and a key part about making decisions is being well informed. So when we began thinking about what tools could be useful for professionals to help them make better decisions, we decided that if we could provide the 5 articles that mattered most to you during the day, your work day, so something in the morning, these are the 5 things that we're actually going to talk about, that would be a tremendous service that we could provide to individual professionals. So we decided to build something which was essentially a different approach to news. It was an attempt to create something which represented the voice of the community, the voice of a given industry. And so far, it's actually very interesting.
And so a lot of that data is obviously coming in through Twitter, but some of it is shared on LinkedIn itself.
Definitely.
But nothing through Facebook yet, right? What's
right.
the decision there to just use Twitter data, but not Facebook data necessarily?
So the main thing is that many professionals use Twitter as a mechanism for gathering followers, bringing, in order to allow them to share information, share ideas, and to establish their reputation. We wanted that to be a part of how LinkedIn operated. So it was a natural partnership for us to actually pursue, because Twitter is very frequently used that way.
Gotcha.
Facebook, less so, but definitely something that we look at and look for opportunities to work with them too.
So the last thing I wanted to talk about briefly, again, something you and I have discussed before, and I thought it was pretty cool. Like, it seems, more broadly that we live in the world of the pivot, but when LinkedIn started, you said that you guys all mainly knew where you were going to be right now, and you're close to it.
It's actually very interesting, because when I talk to entrepreneurs, I talk a lot about pivoting and how important the ability to do that is. One of the great things about LinkedIn is we were lucky enough to work with, to have one of our founders, Reid Hoffman, who has worked on so many different products, but not only as a creator and as an operational executive, but also as an advisor, an investor. And that additional knowledge allowed us to ask a bunch of great questions at the beginning of LinkedIn, which allowed us to sort of, if you will, set the field for what LinkedIn was going to be about. It was going to be about professionals. It was going to be targeted towards entrepreneurs. It was going to be targeted towards hiring and recruiting. It was going to be targeted towards keeping your professional network with you all the time. And when we look back at the documents we created in 2002, we're actually pretty much on target.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks a lot, Alan, for taking the time.